Hello and welcome to Speedcubing 101. This is episode 14. I am Cube Mom, and I'm grateful that I'm able to publish this episode for you today. By the way, thank you to everyone for your feedback on the last episode. Of course, in Cubing, we have Mega Minx. Well, I'm calling the last episode a Megasode, not just because it is a long episode, but also because of all the editing and production time that needs to go into it. So I'm not saying I won't do an episode or a megasode like that again. I just really want to try and publish new content regularly, and having shorter episodes will help with that. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Sonja Black. Sonja is a parent of a cuber. Sonja is a cuber, and Sonja is also part of the nonprofit organization in the Pacific Northwest of the United States for cubing. I should probably qualify when I say Sonja is a cuber. Sonja is a cuber. She's competed in blind, multi-blind, FMC. So, that is some serious cubing. This interview was recorded during the Oregon Championships, which happened September 2024. And in this interview, I reference my interview with Matthew Marinick with Speedcubing TV. However, that episode has not published yet. It will be the next episode. There is a bit more technical things I need to do for the audio of Matthew Marinick's episode. And, well, just like in comps, when you don't want to have your two Kevins together in the same group, if possible, or where we are, we also have Kevin and Devin sometimes in the same group, which can confuse things. I didn't want to have two Matthew episodes back to back. But at least you know now, when you hear the part in this interview with Sonja Black about Matthew Marinick's interview has not published yet. Confusing enough for you? Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining me today. And here's my interview with Sonja Black. Welcome to Speedcubing 101. And I'm here with a special guest today, Sonja Black. How is this competition going for you?
Well, like so many comps for older folks like me, my results are not great, but I'm having a good time.
Okay. Thank you for joining me today on Speedcubing 101. Tell me, how did you get into cubing?
Oh, that's a long story. I was 10 when the Rubik's Cube first hit the US, and I had one back then. Never could solve it. There was a kid on the block who learned and could solve it, but I never could figure it out. And eventually it collected dust in the back of the closet and I forgot all about it. And then maybe about 10 years ago, we hired this new kid at work, and he would walk around the halls, in the office with a cube and just kind of idly solving it. And it just sort of reminded me, it's like, I never could solve that thing, and it irritated me. So I went and bought one and found an online tutorial and learned beginner's method and felt very satisfied because, like this long-standing itch that had been scratched. So.
Do you remember what that online tutorial was?
Oh, not right off. It was just some random web page. It was not a YouTube tutorial like everything is these days. It was just some page that showed you the steps and listed out the algorithms, and it made sense then in some way that it did not when I was a kid. So yeah, that was very satisfying.
And then from there?
I kind of was satisfied and didn't really do a lot with it until, it must have been about a year later. We were looking for one last Christmas gift for one of my kids because you have to keep them even between the two kids, and I said to my wife, well, like maybe they're like a Rubik's Cube, right? Could be. So we went for it. It was easy to just order one off Amazon, and it showed up in the mail. And, at first, like when Ash opened this at first, Ash Black is my child, who's an excellent cuber in their own right, and I'm very proud.
And how old was Ash at this time
Ash
getting
was
the first cube?
Yeah, well, 12 and a half at that Christmas. And, gave it the old side eye when it opened it up. It's like, well, what is this? And at that point, I'd kind of forgotten, honestly, how to do the full beginner's method, but we were at the grandparents' house that Christmas, and I remember sitting on grandmother's couch and kind of puzzling it out with what I could remember, plus the little tiny fold-out thing that comes inside the package of the cube, and they're like weird diagrams, and broken English descriptions of things. But we figured it out and, went through a couple of solves that way. And then, I don't know, just something clicked in Ash's brain and they were off to the races. And, suddenly like looking up tutorials on YouTube and getting fast. And, 6 months later, we went to our first competition and,
How did you know about competitions?
I didn't. It's the most random thing, Ash started getting fast and it just occurred to me like, God, I wonder if there's competitions in this. And so I Googled it and there's a WCA, an entire World Cube Association for this. I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. And so I searched for competitions on their website and just like the most amazing sheer luck, like this was a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday. And that upcoming Saturday, there was a competition about a half an hour from our house. And so I said, Ash, do you want to go give this a try? And they kind of reluctantly, oh, okay. Ash was very shy at the time. But we went and checked it out and had a great time, and I got him signed up and, and this is our life now.
Yes, this is definitely your life now. I've seen you many times at many competitions. You've given us tips and suggestions. I judged you actually for blind once, which was really intense.
I hope I got a success.
I just remember telling myself, do not move a muscle.
Oh, yeah.
I want to keep this about you. I mean, because Ash is his own story.
Yes.
With everything.
But the stories are really intertwined.
It is.
Parent-child, it's always that way.
When did you also start? Because you are a competitor, like I just said, you even compete in blind as a parent.
2019. Ash, we had been, so 2017, Ash started competing. 2019, we decided we were going to go to nationals in Baltimore. And
so Ash at this point had picked up the other events too, or just?
Oh yeah, Ash was doing lots of events by then and, having a good time. I thought to myself, well, shoot, if we're going to go all the way to Baltimore, I want to compete. It's like, when am I going to have a chance to compete at a national level at anything, right? Except maybe this. And for that competition, you needed to have a 40-second time on the books to qualify for 3x3. And it was like, I don't know, February or something. And I'm like, well, I can probably do it because I had kind of relearned by then and my times were around a minute, and 40 seconds, I could do that. And, we had like 3 comps lined up before the cutoff date. So I just practiced real hard and tried. And on the last comp before the cutoff, I got it. I squeaked under 40 seconds. And so started.
So what method did you use at that time?
At that time, I can't remember, to be honest, if I was still using pure beginner's method or if I had moved on to like a hybrid of first 2 layers, CFOP style plus beginner's method last layer, which I did for a long time as I've kind of slowly transitioned into full CFOP.
Okay. And how was that nationals?
Oh, it was a hoot. We had such a great time. I volunteered to work staff because, I was only going to be competing in 3x3, just that one event. I hadn't even learned 2x2 at that time. And it's 4 days, and what am I going to do for 4 days, bored off my butt in the competition hall? So I volunteered to work staff, which was
had you volunteered before that?
No, I had not. That was my first big experience with participating in the running of a competition on any level. And so Matthew Dickman, who's, a big name in cubing, especially locally, he was running one of the teams that we ran the blue stage. There were 4 different stages at that competition hall, and we did the blue stage, and we had our blue shirts and, our staff shirts, and it was all like people from the Pacific Northwest that were on that team. And so we just it was so much fun just to hang out with those people for 4 days and run our stage and get to see a lot of really top name competitors up close. I remember sitting at a judging table and, there was 2 stations per table the way it usually is. And at the other station was Max Park, right? And, he was on the live streaming station, right? And I didn't have anybody at my station, right? So, it's like, oh, okay, I get to just sort of watch Max. And he was doing a 7x7 solve, and it happened to be the solve where I think he got the first sub 2 minute time. If I remember, it was like a 1:55 or something. And, of course, it was just amazing to watch.
Did the place erupt?
Not as much as you might think, because it wasn't finals. It was just one of the earlier rounds. But it was neat to see.
Yeah. And generally, 7x7, not everyone's familiar with the record times and what is a...
I don't know. I mean, I think the kids all are. Right?
Yeah.
Because this is their sport. And like any sport, they geek out on the stats, right?
Okay. Yes, this was your fourth competition. It was your first big competition and your first time volunteering. And now you're on the board with Pacific Northwest Cubing.
Yep. As of a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, what got you to that level?
I think just showing up. It's like I'm always here. I've brought Ash to so many comps now. This is my 64th competition, and Ash, what did they say, 80 something yesterday? 80 something. I mean, who can even keep track, right? If it wasn't for the database, we'd have no idea. So it's like I'm always here, and Ash is old enough to drive themselves to comps now, but this is my thing too. So we always come together, and I know how important it is to keep things running on time, or so we need the judges, we need runners, we need people actually working the competition. So as much as possible, I pitch in to help, and that's as much just to keep myself busy as anything. Yeah, just over the years, I've been around a lot and met a lot of people and showed up, and that gets noticed, because there are other parents, I won't name names or anything, but there are other parents who also like have always showed up for their kid and been there, but like never help judge. They never get involved in the actual running of the competition. And it's hard to say why, but they don't, and I guess that's just personal preference or something. But, I like being involved. And so when there was an opening on the board and Kaylin asked me if I wanted to do it, I said, sure.
You've mentioned this is your 63rd, you said, competition?
64th.
64th competition. Out of all these competitions, do you have any favorite memories you want to share?
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, there's so many, right? And a lot of them are, well, I guess there's kind of three buckets of fun memories to have. And a big one of those is, watching Ash succeed and, watching them grow socially and make a friend group that they really click with, and as well as watching them get their results and become, going from just a beginner cuber to someone who is, now like world ranked in certain events. In Scube, Ash is now 13th in the world as of one competition ago, a couple of competitions ago.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it's very exciting. And so very, very proud of them for all the hard work and dedication they've put in. I have a lot of nice memories around, friends I've made and just times spent with those people, hanging out at competitions and sharing tips and tricks and, cheering each other on. That's a really nice aspect of this community. And then, of course, a lot of memories around my own successes, right? It's like, like the first time you get a blind success, or the first time you get a sub 20-second 3x3 solve in comp. It's like, those are exciting things, and
huge.
Yeah, they're fun. Like the first time I ever got a podium in anything, right? Which actually was at a Canadian comp. I forget the name of the comp, but it was a tiny little competition, and there was a round of blind, and I had just been working on blind, and I was not particularly good at it at all. And somehow in that round, I think there were like 8 or 9 competitors, and Max Xiao won the round, of course, because Max Xiao. I came in second because I got one success, and everyone else DNF'd.
Oh, okay.
Which is just how it is in blind.
Congratulations.
I'm often ranked as like the slowest person who did not triple DNF in blind. So,
okay, can you mention all the events that you compete in?
Okay, well, let's see. I do in the N by Ns, 2x2 through 5x5. I do one-handed. I do 3-blind and multi-blind. I do pure minx, mega minx occasionally. What else? Am I forgetting anything? I think that's all.
Yeah, that sounds like most of them.
It's most of them. I don't do 6x6 and 7x7. I mean, 5x5 is a lot of work already, and 6 and 7 just seem like a grind that's not appealing to me. Some people love it, but it's not for me.
Do you have any tips or suggestions for older,
For older cubers?
or how about just parents of cubers who want to learn to compete?
Definitely do it. It's a lot of fun, and it's been great, honestly, having this as something that Ash and I share. Especially like I said, I started when they were 12, so we went through like all the teen years, the difficult teen years,
Oh,
with this as something we had in common.
yeah.
And I think
A
that's
bond
yeah,
over.
that's really
Yeah.
helpful because those teen years, kids they pull away, and that's natural and normal, but they also really need their parents and they need a connection of some form. And so for us, a lot of that came through cubing.
I also want to ask, because we had dinner last night with a
Mm-hmm.
group of parents. You said something that I'd like for everyone to hear. One of the other parents was saying how kind
Mm-hmm.
and special this community is. And you said you've reflected on that and given it some thought.
I have, yeah.
And can you share what you said at dinner?
Yeah, and I'll preface just by saying how amazed we've been at the level of kindness in this community. It's so welcoming and just so generous and sharing and supportive and accepting of everyone. You'll have noticed at comps that there's a lot of diversity in the cubing community. Both ethnic diversity, gender diversity. It's like all identities are
Age.
welcome. Age, yeah, it skews pretty young, but yes, there's old folks like me too. And everyone is welcome, and it's just a wonderful thing. And I think that's just really lovely. But it does make me wonder, like, why is it that way? Because it is a sport. It is ultimately a competition, and somebody wins and everybody else doesn't, right? So why isn't it toxic like so many other sports? And I think it comes down to a number of factors that sort of all play off each other. And one is that as a sport, it does tend to attract people who are more introverted and like gentler personalities, for want of a better term. Part of it is that it does skew young, right? So there's a lot of people who are only here because their parents brought them, which means their parents are there watching and they don't want to act out in front of their parents, right?
Or other people's
or
parents.
other people's parents, yeah. And I think
or
that
delegates.
has a general moderating effect on people's behavior and helps keep people, on an even keel. But mostly, I think it's that this is not a me versus you sport. This is a me versus the clock sport, right? And all you can do is go up and do your solve your best against the clock. And it doesn't matter what anyone else does on their solve versus the clock. They're going to do what they're going to do, and you have no influence over that. And there is no benefit in rivalries or trying to tear anybody down. There just isn't, and that just leads to some really positive and healthy attitudes among the competitors, among these kids. They're all sharing algorithms and tips and tricks, and, oh, do you know this case? And, oh, you can do this weird thing and it cancels 2 moves. It's like all this stuff that it just goes way over my head. I'll never be that fast, but it's just really nice to see them doing that and bonding in a really positive, supportive way.
And I think Wendy had mentioned this in an earlier episode, or maybe it was Tanya and you as well. Like, everybody's been there, even if your friend is has slower averages.
Yeah, we all remember what it's like to be slow. Yeah.
Well, slow in the cubing world.
Yes, exactly.
Genius in the real world, in the outside world.
You hear that genius word thrown around a lot with cubing, and yeah, it looks that way from the outside, but I really believe it's just a set of skills you can learn like anything else. Like the quip that came to mind the other day, when I hear people saying, "Oh, it's too much, I could never learn that." I'm like, do you think you could make a lasagna? Can you make a lasagna? And somebody says, well, no, I don't really cook. I'm like, yeah, but you could find a recipe, right? Well, yeah, you could. And, you could buy the ingredients, right? Yeah, sure. Of course I could. And, you could follow the steps, right? Like, yeah, you could make a lasagna if you put your mind to it. So it's like exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. There's a set of steps and you can learn them. And whether you want to or not, that's totally up to you. And if you don't, that's fine. There's, nobody says you have to be a cuber, right? But don't limit yourself by thinking that it's something you can't do because it looks hard. It does look hard, but it's not actually as hard as you think.
Yeah, good, very good point. So I also interviewed, the episode is not published yet, Matthew from Happy Feet Productions, and he was sharing how when he was growing up, his dad would drive him to competitions, and they had like this sort of a tradition to find like some greasy spoon diner place at every comp
Yeah,
that they had to travel.
right.
Do you
Yeah,
and Ash have
we
anything?
do. We have some food traditions around competitions. Lunch is almost always Subway by default because there's a Subway everywhere.
There are
Right? I
subways
know. I mean, it's like I
everywhere.
swear to God, Subway is going to be the first franchise on the moon. They're going to get there before McDonald's does. But so there's always a Subway, and it's reliable, right? And
Yes,
it's the
it's
same.
consistent.
And I know what Ash's order is, and I can just go and get it and give him a sandwich when I get back, and it's so easy and nice, right? So that's one. Our special Portland area tradition is the Burgerville, right? It's a
Oh.
local burger chain. There's 12 or 13 of them scattered around the Portland area. Great burgers. So, on your way out of town, grab Burgerville. There's one just a
Yeah.
couple miles away from here,
Okay.
right? We
Okay.
hit it on our way in on Friday for lunch, right? And we'll probably do that for dinner tonight, leaving town.
I will look at the menu.
Mhm.
And then now, with all your years, what are your wishes for the WCA? What are your hopes and dreams from your perspective?
Oh gosh. I mean, I do hope the sport continues to grow, right? Things need to either grow or die, right? And I don't want to see it die. But there's no stagnation. That's not really a thing. So it has to grow. And it's such a tightrope, and I don't know what the answer here is. But my hope not for the WCA, right? The WCA, they're going to do what they're going to do, and they've honestly done a very admirable job in managing this sport and creating regulations and having standards and creating a framework to hold all these competitions. So my hopes are really for the community and not for the WCA. My hopes for the community are that it grows to the point where this sport has career paths for these kids, because a lot of them, like I said, there's a lot of neurodivergence in this community, and not all of those kids are cut out for a 9 to 5 job or, for whatever, right? But they love this sport, and there's nothing about helping run comps or competing that any of them can't learn to do. Like you said, we've been around and we learn to do these things. Uh, so I hope that somehow, someday, there are more career paths in cubing and ways for kids to make this a career, make a living at it, and not a crappy living, but like a proper good living. And does that mean that top tier cubers become professionals in the way that other professional athletes get big salaries? Maybe. I don't know where that money comes from, and I don't know how that happens without introducing toxic elements that I would really hate to see come into the community. So that's a hard question. It's like I would like to see that as a path for kids, but I'm very aware of the risks that money brings to the vibe of the community, right? And that vibe is so critical. It would be just tragic if big money came in and suddenly it got all toxic because now like the top computer competitors really are rivals, and they're mad when they don't win because it means they lost out on some big prize pot, or their sponsor didn't give them a bonus or something like that. It's like that would not be good. So I don't know what that future looks like, but I do hope that there are career paths in the future. And I think there are ways that it could happen, not around the competitive side of it, but around the organizing side of it, right? We have our delegates are all volunteers, people who run organizations like Cubing USA or PNW Cubing or even the WCA. Those are all volunteer positions, but these people are putting in a lot of work, and honestly, they should get compensated, right? If there was money available somewhere, they should get paid for it because it's a job, and at some point, I think that has to happen for the sport to continue to grow and be viable at higher levels. So again, I don't know where that money comes from, but I do think that would be a good thing to have is actual career paths in the sport.
Thank you. Definitely food for thought, and thank you for thinking ahead to the future, because you have to plan for the future of, as you say, growth.
Yeah, some of my dreams for PNW Cubing are in that direction. It's like, how can we, maybe find a way to pay our delegates for their time, or to, um, who knows what, maybe hire some part-time staff to help run the PNW, and I don't know what, but right now we don't have the money for it. We're a pretty new organization, so these are just dreams, but maybe someday.
Thank you so much, Sonja, for your time today.
And it's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, best wishes to you and Ash, because you're still competing today.
Yep.
We have
4x4 in a little while.
Yes. So they're actually ahead of schedule. So we're recording this during a break, a 15-minute break. Well, longer than 50 minutes now. But yes, we got to head out to 4x4. My Cuber is in it as well. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
So that is the journey thus far for Sonja Black and Ash Black, plus Sonja's reflections on cubing, the cubing community, and her wishes for the future as it relates to cubing. If you are just starting out in the world of cubing, here are some tips from WCA delegates, starting with, actually not just WCA delegate, but also WCA board member Nick Silvestri. Take it away, Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick Silvestri. I've been cubing since 2008, so 16 years now. I have been involved in the WCA since 2016 and became a staff member in 2022. If I was to give one tip for a new competitor, and this is something that even I only learned recently, is that by going 10% slower, you're going to make less mistakes. You're going to get your nerves a little bit calmed down. And somehow by going slower, you go faster. So that's what I'd say. Thank you.
Our next tip from a delegate is from Adam Walker. He was first a delegate in SoCal, Southern California, and is now a delegate in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, I'm here with Adam Walker.
Hi, my name is Adam Walker. I've been a delegate since 2018 in the Seattle area. And my tip for new competitors is to definitely get out of your comfort zone. I know whenever I was first going to my first few competitions, it was really nerve-wracking meeting all these cool new people. So definitely encourage you to meet others and have a good time.
And now our last tip from a delegate is from Rainier. Rainier's favorite events are 3x3 and 3x3OH. And now I'm here with Rainier Filer.
Hi, I'm Rainier Filer. I've been cubing for 16 years. I'm a junior delegate for the WCA, and some advice I'd give to a new competitor is that you should really just focus on your own times. Don't really pay attention to how other people are solving. You really just want to focus on yourself, because really your results are your results, and they're for you, not for anybody else.
Here's your Cube News update.
In our Cube News today, as of yesterday from the time this publishes, the 2025 World Championships registration has now closed. The 2,000 competitor limit has been reached and the wait list is full. So that tells me the Seattle Convention Center is going to be booming with cubers at the World Championships July 3rd to 6th in Seattle, Washington. Just talking to some of our very new cuber parents where I live, they are so thankful for the information about the World Championships because their child is a fan of the Speedcubers documentary, and being able to drive down from the Vancouver, Canada area to the Seattle, USA area. It's just a few hours, sometimes less than that, depending on how and when you drive. Spectator tickets are currently available for $10 US. The spectator tickets will go up to $15 US on May the 1st. And please note that when you get a spectator ticket, it is not for one day, it is for all 4 days of the competition. More info about this is in the show notes. Now, I know not everyone listening is able to drive to Seattle, and it may not work to attend Worlds. Please note that in cubing, the national championships happen every other year, and this is the year, 2025, for national championships. The Canadian National Championships are happening July 24th to 27th in Montreal, Quebec. You can hear more about that in the last episode of Speedcubing 101. That's episode 13, where Tarandeep Mittal gives an update, but also stay tuned for more info as it's released. Before I let you go, I'm going to give a little update about me, which I hesitate to do, but at the same time, some of the things I've talked about in earlier episodes, I need to be sure that I update you. So one is I talked with Tanya in episode 3 about organizing a competition. At that time, I had not organized a competition, but yes, I have now organized a competition. So if you're listening to this and you were at Maple Ridge Favorites 2025, thank you for celebrating the new year and, of course, kicking off the new year with a competition. The other update I have for you is in episode 10, when I spoke with Gonzalo Jimenez about competing, not me competing. He competed first so that his son could see what it was like, and now his son is competing. Well, I have now started competing as well. And funny enough, I competed in an event that Sonja Black has not competed in. So take from that whatever you will. I competed in clock. I've chatted with many of you parents in person or online who have mentioned that, yeah, your cuber really wants you to compete. Your cuber's trying to teach you, show you. If you are interested in competing, but you have hesitancies and you are feeling reluctant, go for it. You're going to do just fine, and you will not do worse than what I have done so far. Well, actually, I should take that back because that is the advice Wendy Newland gave me. Wendy from episode 7. She told me, well, you can't do any worse than me. I DNF'd on my first solve. Well, yes, I can do worse than that because I DNF'd on my first 3 solves and it was over 2 competitions. So just remember, every master was once a disaster. And if you're having fun, that's what matters. No, I should take that back too because I'm really trying to, yes, have fun, but also get better and faster. My average in clock now is 23.68 seconds, and I have a single on record of 16.75 seconds, which is actually a good time for me, even at home. I do get times like that, but I'm usually around 20 to 25. And now I'm doing what my own cuber did. When it comes to 3x3, 6 months ago, he'd be walking around the house being like, I want to be sub 20. I want to be sub 20. I want to be sub 20. Now, fast forward 6 months later, I am, not for 3x3, but in clock, walking around the house going, I want to be sub 20. I want to be sub 20. I want to be sub 20. So no pressure, parents. I know your lives are busy. You've got responsibilities in almost every direction possible. But if you're having that thought, maybe I will give it a try. Maybe I will ask my cuber to teach me and show me. You have my vote to dive in. Okay, that wraps up episode 14 of Speedcubing 101. Thank you to all the delegates on this episode. Thank you to Sonja Black for sharing your journey. If you have any questions, corrections, or suggestions for the podcast, please email me, cubemomofficial@gmail.com. That's cubemomofficial@gmail.com. Feel free to leave a rating for Speedcubing 101 on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but Speedcubing 101 is now also on YouTube, so feel free to like and subscribe there. I'll see you at a comp soon or on the next episode. Happy cubing and go, cubers, go.